Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Mark Steiner. Great to have you with us. While the world is not watching, Haiti is seething again. Massacres have occurred in La Saline, Haiti. Men, women, and children have been killed, raped, burned alive, and few are watching. But the Real News is watching. In a special report, Margaret Prescott, who hosts Sojourner Truth at KPFK in Los Angeles, went to Haiti at great risk to herself to document the violent repression that is taking place in Haiti at this moment. She's now joining us to share what she has seen, and we will be seeing what she saw in a video that she brought home that they're editing now. And let me warn everyone that some of what you're about to see and hear is quite gruesome. Margaret Prescott, welcome. Good to have you back here with us on The Real News.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to say I was I'm very glad that The Real News is doing this and helping to get the word out. And part of why I went to Haiti was not only to get information for Pacifica Radio, for the national broadcast that I do, but also for The Real News Network.
And I'm glad you did. This story it's amazing how little has been known about this story, that actually this particular episode began with some stories we heard in November about massacres taking place in La Saline. But we're going to play a short clip here of what you had to say about La Saline and why it's the home of liberation.
The great Haitian Revolution that led to the emancipation of all of us, the ending of slavery throughout the Americas. And the people of La Saline, it seems, are still paying a very, very heavy price for that victory, because that's something that's never forgotten, and that this community is a center of resistance. The first Black republic in the world, right? Right here, a center of resistance.
So, Margaret, let's talk a bit about that. What you were saying. Why is La Saline such a focal point, and why did these massacres occur there in November, and they seem to be continuing?
Well, historically, La Saline is right on the water. It's right in the area where the slave ships came in, and the road leading up to La Saline actually is where the road where slaves were bought and sold. And they have had a long history of resistance that you likely heard or saw in the clip you played. However, what I didn't know before going into La Saline, and I found out in La Saline and after I left, is that La Saline, given their history of resistance, the uprisings that we have seen somewhat covered in mainstream media last summer, but as well as earlier this year, last fall, they generally begin in La Saline, and then they spread across the capital, Port-au-Prince, spread across the other parts of the country. So in the targeting of La Saline, that was very, very pointed. It's to send a political message, to strike terror in the heart of people who would dare go on the streets and protest, not only against fuel prices, but asking, where is the Petrocaribe dollars, the over $2 billion stolen during the previous and present administrations, demanding that the president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse, the U.S.-backed president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse, step down. Right. These are some of the demands of the movement. So the attack on La Saline was really an attempt to dampen the uprising, to dampen those protests, and to strike terror in the heart of those who dare to stand up. And I should also say that this massacre, the one that happened in November of 2018, the largest since the Duvalier years. For people who may know something about Haiti's history, you always read about the brutal Duvalier years, where you have the Tonton Macoute, these paramilitary, government-backed paramilitary forces going around killing and burning people. And the last one that we know of that we could compare with what happened in La Saline was a massacre, I think was in 1987, of peasants, where 127 peasants were killed. Well, the numbers are greater now in La Saline, and the massacres are continuing.
Do we know how many people were killed in La Saline? Do we have a
We really don't. there's been an official report done by a human rights organization. And when they did the report, which was December of last year, they said there were 77 victims. However, people on the ground and other opposition officials that I've spoken to, we spoke to when we were on the ground in Haiti, say those numbers are insulting, that the numbers are far greater than that. And if you also consider that the massacres have continued beyond November, you just have a sense of those numbers.
So let me talk about it a bit more. One of the things you said in this video, and very clearly all the time, was that you didn't show a lot of people's faces because of the fear of repression and retribution if they were seen. But then a number of people in the community came up kind of fearlessly and said and put themselves on camera to talk to you. And in one of those scenes, there was a man talking about whose woman whose husband was killed. Another one who lost her son and was burned alive. So, Margaret, talk about these people you interviewed, the ones that that did put their faces on camera. That horrendous picture of the woman whose body was scarred, the other one who saw her son burned alive and killed, and they were not afraid to come forth and talk. So I talk a bit about that moment and what was it like for you, and what this really means to all of us.
Yeah, it was really just amazing because we were very, very careful, as you said, because we don't want to put anyone at risk, and we knew the danger that was involved. But as we spent a bit more time in La Saline, and as people began that relationship of trust happened more, I'll also say that we were some of the first media outlets to go in there with sound and camera, actually talking to the people. And they really appreciated that. And I'll have to say that it was the women who first came forward and said, I'm ready to go on camera. Could you imagine the risks that they're taking? But just the grief and the rage was such that we were all really stunned, and not only by the courage of people to come forward to say what happened to them, but what they described, a pregnant woman talking about her husband being killed, being not only killed, but cut up, his body being cut up with a machete. A woman whose son was similarly killed in front of her. They forced her to watch it. And she was so traumatized by the whole thing, her entire body has now broken out. A man whose son was killed, hearing about bodies that were burned alive, pregnant women coming forward. It was just an incredible moment of courage. But you know what? Given the history of La Saline, and given the Haitian people who remain so resilient in the face of everything, this is the most impoverished place in the Americas. La Saline, along with Cité Soleil, the most impoverished in Haiti. So you could just imagine the conditions that people were living under in the first place. But nevertheless, they consistently take to the streets. They consistently say, we want to complete our revolution that, according to the history books, was won in 1804. But people still feel that they are still struggling for that democracy, that they had a glimmer of that democracy with the election of the first democratically elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. And as you may know, there were 2 U.S.-backed coups against President Aristide. And the party that he leads, Lavalas, they did run a candidate, Dr. Maurice Narcisse, in this last election. And it seems as though the United States, France, Canada, and the 1%ers in Haiti who do their bidding would do anything rather than have Lavalas back in power again, because the base of Lavalas are the impoverished people in Haiti. But people have not forgotten that, and they're still holding on to the fact that they are determined against being up against everything to continue their struggle for democracy. It's quite remarkable, and it's quite inspiring, I'll have to say.
So we're here talking with Margaret Prescott from KPFK and her show Sojourner Truth, and she went to Haiti with The Real News to tell this very special story. And we're going to pick this story up with the body of a woman who was burned alive, and also political consequences of this, and look at some more of these the visuals that we brought back, and to talk more about that with Margaret. I want to thank Margaret for doing this for all of us, and stay with us for the next segment. I'm Mark Steiner here for The Real News. Welcome, everyone. This is Mark Steiner here for The Real News, and we're talking with Margaret Prescott, whose show Sojourner Truth appears on Pacifica. She went to Haiti for The Real News and joins us now. We're going to continue our conversation with her. And Margaret, let me just begin by showing this video of you walking into this home where they found a skeleton of a woman who was burned alive.
If we weren't here and somebody was just telling us about it, just very, very difficult to believe. We are about to enter the home.
It's hard for you to smell this. Because it's like the bones, like the skeleton.
The smell and some of the bones of this woman are still here. So they are warning us to be careful, and it may be difficult indeed. And there is the skeleton. Oh, this is the skeleton of a woman who was pregnant and burned to death. And here she is, and they are keeping her to hopefully get the word out to the world that something has got to be done. The people in La Saline must not be left alone. They must know that people are with them who care and who could stop these atrocities.
Margaret, I could hear from your own voice in this video and what you saw that this is just, it was just almost too difficult to watch. But I think it was important to be seen to show the kind of level of violence taking place against the Haitian people. And this is a pregnant woman burned alive in her home.
And the smell was still there, Mark. Could you imagine that? So we not only had to enter a space that in many ways was a sacred space because this was a skeleton of a woman there, but still the smell of her death in the room, and some of her bones were scattered. A lot of it was together, but some of it was scattered in other places. You could see the burn marks on some of the bones. I mean, I have never in my life had to experience, to witness something like that. And the residents of La Saline, they really wanted us to see that. They want the world to see it. And they were saying, what can you do to get this message out? And that's why, Mark, what you're doing and what The Real News is doing is so important. I think this is the first video footage actually likely to be seen of what happened in La Saline. But it was quite a moment, as you could well imagine, just devastating, just heartbreaking.
So as we're talking together, we're also going to show our viewers this photo of a man, it's a nude photo of a man who was killed and later cut up by the Haitians, and by the Haitian police. So let me, as we're looking at this, Margaret, and these are not easy things to look at or watch, but let's just talk about what, again, politically, what's behind this and why this is happening. We saw that in the last few weeks that 5 mercenaries were arrested in Haiti, Americans, former SEALs, some of them, one a Serbian, and then sent back to the United States, saying they were there to protect things in Haiti. They weren't there to kill people, but the weapons they took were these major assault weapons. Is there a connection here? What is politically is happening? Why there are mercenaries in Haiti? Why these scenes of horrendous violence are taking place against the Haitian people? What is underneath of this?
Yes, and if you see, and if your viewers see some of the bullet holes, you'll see that these were major weapons that were used. This isn't just some small caliber bullet for the most part, right? And when on the ground in Haiti, we saw teams of mercenaries. I can't tell you. I mean, it seemed as though every time we paused to sit down somewhere to grab a cup of coffee or something to eat, here came a group of people, men, Americans speaking English, perhaps with someone who looked like maybe they were Jordanian or Latinx in the mix. And the energy and the vibe you got, definitely, these are teams of mercenaries. And as you know, the United Nations that had occupied Haiti for quite some time, they are in the process of withdrawing, right? And it seems to me, anyway, our thought and of our entire team, that these teams of mercenaries are basically replacing the UN troops. And we heard of people being killed by expert sniper fire. You need training to be able to do something like that. We also know that the Martine Moise, who is the first lady of Haiti, a few days before the November massacre began, she went to La Saline with a lot of money, giving out money to the people. She met with a community leader in La Saline, and the deal was they wanted the protests to stop and for the people of La Saline to support her husband and her husband's party. Of course, the people took the money, but then they and the leader, the community-based leader, made it clear that they would never support the government of her husband, that it was corrupt, right? And that they were demanding accountability. What happened is that that community leader was arrested. He's still in prison. The people of La Saline are demanding his release. But then what they say is that that visit from the First Lady was the trigger that began these massacres. Now, some of even public radio in the United States and mainstream media, they're reporting that what's going on in La Saline is a conflict between two gangs.
Right.
That is not the case, all right? Because what the people, they name names of people in government, and they have made it clear that when these paramilitary people come in to torture and kill, that they are led in by Boyd. Boyd are like the special Haitian police forces, specially trained by the UN, by the United States, likely by some of these very mercenaries that are in the country. How is that possible? And people, so many people have had to flee La Saline. One other quick point I should make also is that there were a few apartment type buildings that were built for the people during the Aristide era. And because a lot of people there basically live in shacks. Now, those homes were also targeted. They were some of the first to be targeted, and people who lived in those homes had to flee, and they went to another place near the water, and they were sleeping on the concrete floor, on pieces of cardboard. We interviewed a young mother there who had given birth in this place that they fled to. And honestly, looking at her child, we knew she had no medical care. She had very little food. And we don't have much hope that that child likely lived, but these are the conditions, and people are very, very angry about it, and they know that government forces are behind it, and they know why. Nevertheless, as you could see from the video, they were ready to speak out about what is happening and who they think is responsible for this.
So very quickly, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just to conclude, I want to talk just very quickly about what you think has to happen from this end. What are the measures we can take in this country to let people know, but also what this country has to do to not allow this to happen?
That's right. And I think it's very important for a delegation to get down there, perhaps the Congressional Black Caucus leading a delegation to go as soon as possible, be on the ground in Haiti, not only to meet with the present government, which we understand they likely will have to do, but also to meet with the people who survive La Saline, to meet with the leadership of Lavalas. The people in La Saline, by the way, made it very, very clear that if President Aristide or Lavalas was there, this would not be happening. And that's another reason that they're going after La Saline, because it is a stronghold of the party of President Aristide as well. So that urgently needs to happen. And more media going down there, perhaps another round from Real News, Pacifica, etc., going down there and getting the update as to what is happening and documenting all of this because the people of Las Salines say this has got to stop. And they made an appeal actually to the Congressional Black Caucus in the United States to say, please help us, please do something to stop these massacres.
Margaret Prescott, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for going to Haiti for the Real News in Pacifica to get this story to us. The entire video will be shown when it's finished editing, and we look forward to your thoughts on this. And Margaret, thanks so much for joining us here in the Real News.
Thank you so very much, Mark.
And I'm Mark Steiner here for the Real News Network. Thanks for joining us. Take care.